looking at the relationship between output and the costs of production, the concept of variable cost. How much do you spend on your variable input, labor, in order to produce a given amount of output, say a certain number of television sets? Now we're going to introduce two other concepts of cost that will prove useful to us down the road when we're looking at a firm's profit maximizing decision. That is, how much output should we produce if we want to make the most profit we can? The first concept that we're going to introduce is how costs change when you change your output. If you think back to our discussion of productivity, we introduced a concept called marginal product. How much additional output do we get when we hire an extra worker? Now we're going to ask a similar question about costs. How much extra money do we have to spend in order to produce an extra unit of output? This concept is called marginal cost. And you'll see over there that we've defined marginal cost very carefully. The marginal cost of production is the additional cost incurred when a firm produces an extra unit of output. Or, to define it mathematically, it's the change in variable cost that results from a change in output or a change in production. Let's look at how to calculate the marginal cost of production. If we go from one worker to two workers, the number of televisions that we produce goes from 2 to 10. That is, the marginal product of this second worker is 8 additional television sets. Now, how much is each one of those television sets costing us? Well, in order to get those extra television sets, we're having to increase our spending on labor from $1,000 to $2,000. The change in variable cost then is $2,000 minus $1,000, or $1,000. That's our change in variable cost. The change in output is 10 minus 2, or 8. So if we divide $1,000 by 8 extra television sets, we get the marginal cost of those extra television sets over that range. And that would be $1,000 divided by 8 equals $125 per set. That's the marginal cost, the extra money that must be spent to get an additional television set over that range of production. We can continue this exercise. If you add another worker, you can go from 10 to 30 television sets. That's 20 additional sets for an extra labor expense of an extra $1,000. You hired an extra worker. $1,000 divided by those 20 extra sets is a marginal cost of $50. So $50 a set will get you an extra television set as you go from 2 to 3 workers, as you go from 10 to 30 televisions. Keep calculating. In each case, look at the change in variable cost and divide that by the change in the number of television sets. And what you will get in each case is the marginal cost, the cost of adding another television set to your output. What I've done here is come up with a chart that shows the marginal cost of production. How much does it cost to produce an extra television set in each of these circumstances? If you go from 1 to 2 workers, well, let's start from the beginning. If you go from 0 to 1 worker, the marginal cost of those first 2 sets is $500 apiece. If you go from 1 to 2 workers and go from 2 to 10 television sets, those next 8 sets are costing you $125 apiece. The next 20 television sets, when you add the third worker, are costing you $50 apiece. In each case, the marginal cost tells you how much you're paying to get an additional television set in a particular case. Now, a good question is, why is the marginal cost of production changing? Why is the marginal cost of the first 2 sets only $500 each? The marginal cost of the next 8 sets is only $125 each. The marginal cost of the next 20 sets drops down to $50. Then the marginal cost of the next 10 sets is $100 each. Why is the marginal cost changing as output and employment change? What do you think? If you had to come up with a reason why marginal cost is changing as output and employment change, what would you think is the answer? Here's a hint. Go back to our original lectures on the total product? The answer is this. Marginal cost is changing because productivity is changing as we hire more workers. At first, the marginal product of labor is increasing. You add extra workers, they add more to output than the worker before. Remember, that second worker adds 8 TVs. The third worker adds 20 TVs. Adding extra workers is making the workforce more productive. When the workforce gets more productive, the cost of producing extra televisions drops. The inverse relationship between costs and productivity. Marginal cost varies as the productivity of labor varies. And as we've seen before, the productivity of labor changes as you add more and more workers. At first, you have teamwork and specialization. Over that range, the marginal cost of production is falling because workers are getting more productive. After a while, you get congestion of your fixed inputs, and the marginal product of labor begins to fall. When that happens, the marginal cost of producing extra televisions begins to rise. When productivity is increasing, marginal cost is decreasing. When productivity is shrinking, marginal cost is increasing. Once again, we have the inverse relationship. A quick summary. Marginal cost is defined as the change in variable cost that results from a change in output. When productivity is increasing, marginal cost is falling. When labor productivity is decreasing, marginal cost is increasing.